Welcome back to my Bridge Choice YouTube channel. In today's class, we'll be learning how to make this beautiful asymmetric kimono blouse. So it has a drop shoulder on one side of the bodies, and then it has a flare sleeve attached to the kimono sleeve. It's a cut together blouse and it's really simple to make. This is where you like to learn. Kindly stay tuned to the end of this tutorial. Thank you. Okay, so these bodies have the sleeve cut together in form of a kimono, as you can see. Then it has an asymmetric neckline, one with shoulder and the other one dropping down a bit. Okay, it has like a band on the neckline area and then a flare sleeve attached to the hem of the basic sleeve cut together with the bodies. So now I'll be illustrating that on this paper before I transfer to my fabric, because I'm using an organza fabric and it's quite slippery. So the measurement you need is actually not a lot. You need your measurement from your center back. That's what you're going to use to fold your fabric, from your center back to where you want your sleeve to stop, which in this case should be around the elbow area, because you are adding a flare to the extra sleeve, so you don't want it too long. So for me, for the measurement that I'm working with, I'm going to go to exhaust what I have on this paper. So from the center back to the elbow area is around 19 inches, but I have 18 inches here, which is what I'll be using. Okay, so now I folded my paper into two. The front and back is going to be cut the same way. So this folded paper is just going to be enough for me to cut both the front and back. So now the next measurement I'll be taking now are my vertical measurement. So from the upper part here, I'll take my armhole measurement, which is 9 inches, and then I'm going to take my waist measurement. You actually don't really need it because it's a free blouse, but you can just take it as guide, which is 16 inches, and the full length measurement, which is 24 inches. So I have 24 and a half on my paper. Again, that is what I'm going to be using. So these are my measurements and I'm going to make them into a straight line. Okay, so the shoulder measurement I'm working with is 14 inches. So the 14 inches divided by 2 is going to give me around 7 inches. Okay, sorry, 15 inches. 15 divided by 2 is going to give me 7.5 inches. So I'm taking that measurement here, 7.5 inches. And then as a guide on my armhole line, this is the armhole line, I'm going to take that 7.5 inches also and then through my armhole line. So this is just a guide because I'm not cutting out the armhole for this. Remember I said the main bodies is cut together with the sleeve. Okay, so on my armhole line here, I'm going to take my bust measurement, and the bust I'm working with is 36 inches divided by 4, and that's going to give me 9 inches. So I'm measuring 9 inches here. On my waist here, which this is the waistline, you can actually take your actual waist measurement or just measure your bust measurement also. My actual waist is 30, divided by 4 is going to give me 7.5. So I can just add 1 inch to that for ease, which is 8. It's just going to be a bit different from the bust measurement, or just half an inch, and that's going to give me 8 inches. And then on the M line here, I'm going to measure my round hip measurement. The round hip I'm working with is 38 inches. 38 divided by 4 is going to give me 9.5. So I'll measure the 9.5 here also. So you can add ease to all these measurements. So you can add just one each because you don't want them too tight. Okay. So and then I'm going to connect them together now. So using your curved ruler, you connect all of them because I don't want it too sharp. I don't have a curved ruler here, so I'm just going to try to make do with what I have. Then I can just blend it in. Okay. So now you had your seam allowance. So 1 inch is okay for me. So I'm just going to add an inch seam allowance to all that, and then I'm going to connect it again. So now our bodies is done. The next thing we're going to be doing now is connecting our sleeve to this. Remember, it's a kimono sleeve, and then we folded our fabric using the sleeve measurement. So this line here, I'm just going to extend it to the sleeve point, which is here. So now, depending on how fitted you want your sleeve to be on the hem, that's where you're going to be adding your flare to. Okay, so here I'm going to be dropping it for my shoulder slope here, and here I'm going to go down by 1.5 or 2 inches depending on what you want. Okay, so I'm going down here by 1.5, and then I'm going to take my neckline measurement. So the neckline I want to work with is 3.5 inches. So I'm just taking the neck width because I'm still going to open this up to shape it, and then from my neck point I'm going to connect to that 1.5 inches mark for my shoulder slope. Okay, so you don't have to add a shoulder slope to this if you want to cut the front and back together without having a side joining at the shoulder area. So now you measure around your arm, your elbow. That's where your sleeve is going to stop, but you don't want it to be too tight. Okay, so that measurement that you have there, you divide this by 2. So I have 12 inches there. 12 inches divided by 2 is going to give me around 6 inches. So from here now I'll measure 6 inches, and then I'll just add maybe 1 inch allowance to that. And then on this side here, you don't want this point to be too sharp, so from your armhole line you can go down by 1.5 inches or 2 inches, and then on this corner here you go out by an inch. Okay, this is just a guide for you to draw a smooth curve. So now from where my armhole stops, I'm going to be connecting it like this. So you should use a curve for this, like I said, but I'm just using my free hand because I can actually access a curve right now. So you can see the slight curve that we have there. So now this is done. I can actually cut this out before we continue so that I'll have something smaller to work with. Okay, so this is what we have after cutting it out. So now to create that neckline, I'm going to open it out like this. Okay, so after opening it up, I'll note remember we measured our neckline 3.5 inches. So this is my neck point here, and also on this side, where this is my center fold. Okay, so now I'll measure on my center fold, I'll measure my neck depth. So this is just a guide because I don't want this blouse to be choking. Okay, and remember we have a band that we're going to be adding to this, so it will make it even go higher. So on this neck area now, okay, so this is my 3.5 inches neck point. Okay, so on this neck area I want to extend this because of that band. I want to extend this part by 1 inch because I don't want this to be choking. So now this is going to be my new neck point. Okay, and then on the center front area I want to measure a neck depth of around 4 inches. Okay, you can do 3 inches, but because of that band that I want to add to it, I think 4 inches is fine for me. So now to create that drop shoulder that we have on one side, on the armhole line, where this is our shoulder point, remember from here to here is our shoulder point. So on that shoulder line here, you're going to be dropping it also. Depending on how low you want it to be, you can drop it by maybe the same 4 inches or by 3 or 3.5 inches. So I think I will just be doing 3.5 inches here because I don't want it too low. And then after that, on the main sleeve here, remember our shoulder stops here, this is our sleeve extension. So on the main sleeve here, depending on how low you want it to drop, also again you measure between 3, 4, 5 or even up to 6 inches if you want it really down your arm area. So here I'm just going to be measuring around 3.5 or 4 inches also. So I measured 4 inches. So now the point that I'm going to be joining together now is from my neck point on the one with the shoulder to my center front to the one I dropped on my shoulder area now back to my drop shoulder. So you can just take this in bits and then use a curved ruler to connect all these together. So I'm connecting from my neck point to my center front, and then from the center front to this point here. Okay, that's my shoulder line. So you can see how I'm taking my tape. Remember, sorry, my marker is not showing well. So you can see I'm taking it in bits. So from that point now, I'm going to be draping it to the shoulder area. Okay, you don't have to take everything at once, just do it step by step. So you can see what I have. So after connecting all that, now you take your scissors and then you cut this out. And like I said, you are using the same thing for both the front and back, so you're not concerned with the side that you chose to add your drop shoulder. It works for both ways. So this is our new neckline area. So now I'm going to just play this on my fabric now and cut it out, both the front and back together. Okay, I hope you can see what we have there. Okay, so I'm gonna have to place this on my fabric and I cut it out. So now to sew it, I'm just going to be sewing it on the shoulder, both shoulder, and then also on the side seam. So after sewing it, the next thing now is to take your round sleeve measurement, which is here. Then after taking your round sleeve measurement, you divide that measurement. I have around, by the time I sew this, I'll have around 6 inches or thereabouts. So that's 6 inches. Now you're going to multiply it by 2 because this is on fold, and that's going to give me 12 inches. So the 12 inches is what I'm going to be using to get the radius for my flare. Remember, there is a flare on the hem of the sleeve. So that's 12 inches, you divide it by 6.28 for a full flare, and whatever you get is your radius. So now to do that, you need to fold your fabric by 4. So we've been doing a lot of these already, so I'm not going to dwell on that too much. So now you fold your fabric into 4 to cut your full flare, and the length of this flare for me is going to be around 6 inches. Okay, you can do 5 inches if that is what you want, but I'm doing 6 inches for my length, including seam allowance. So now to fold your fabric, you need to add your radius. So 12 divided by 6.28 is around 1.9 thereabouts. So I'm just going to approximate that into 2, and then I'll add my length to it, that's 6 inches. So you're going to be using 8 inches to fold your fabric. So you just measure 8 inches and then you put it on fold by 2, and then you put it on fold by 4. So you use that, you measure 2 inches for your radius, and then from your radius point you measure 6 inches round for your sleeve length. Okay, so this flare is cut now. We have a radius of 2 inches and length of 6 inches. So whatever excess that I may have here, I'm just going to pleat it on this sleeve because I'm not going to be opening this sleeve. So this is for the 2 sleeves. So now I'll go ahead and sew this together, then I'll bring it back so that we can cut our band for the neckline. Okay, so I'm going to sew this now, and this is what this is looking like. So this is the part to the shoulder. The flare is also added, and like I said, I just pleated whatever excess that I have around the round sleeve area. So this is what this is looking like. This is the part with the shoulder, and then this is the drop shoulder part. So now to create our neck band, what I'm going to do is measure round my neckline with my tape measure. So I just take it and then measure around it, started from one end. So you can just measure one part and then you multiply that by 2. So I'm just taking my tape rule, round it like this, and then I have around 20.5 inches. So 20.5 multiplied by 2 is going to give me 41 inches. Okay, so now to cut my band, I'm going to bring my leftover fabric. So I'm using about 1.5 or 2 yards of fabric should be fine for this. I'll bring my leftover fabric. So if you still have enough fabric, you can cut this band on bias so that I can roll well. But if you don't have, like me, I don't think I have enough to do that. So if you're cutting on bias, this is how you're going to be folding it. in a triangular form like this. Then after folding it in triangular form, you put it on fold, and then you measure your 20.5 on fold. So if you are not putting it on fold, it means you're measuring 41. So I'm not sure I have up to that. So the length of this is going to be around, the length is going to be around 1.5 to 2 inches. That depends on how high you want your band to be. So I'm going to be cutting a band of 20.5 inches, so 21 with seam allowance on fold by 2 inches. Okay, so this 2 inches is because this fabric is actually on fold by the length. Also, if it's not on fold, then it means I'll be cutting maybe 4 inches or 4.5 inches or 5 inches with allowance. I hope you get what I'm trying to say. Okay, so I'm just going to try to see if I can get this on bias. The reason why we're cutting on bias is so that this band, remember, is not straight, it's a bit curved, so you don't want it to be giving you funny shape. So if you cut it on bias, it will be able to roll well for you than cutting it on main. Okay, so I have this. I think this should do for me. So I'm going to measure 21 inches, sorry, by 2 inches. So this is cut now. The next thing now is to just sew this around my neckline. Okay, so you can start from anywhere, maybe the shoulder points here, then you sew it round, and then you fold it over now and sew again, just like you create your normal band. So I'll go and do this because this video is already long, then I'll bring it back to show us what we have. So I've gone ahead to add the band to it, so I can see where I sew it round. I used the purple thread. I hope you can see that. So this is my band now, and this is what the blouse is looking like. Okay, so you can see this is the asymmetric neckline, this is the part with the shoulder, this is the off shoulder part, this is the bodice, and this is the sleeve. So you just need to iron this now, and then I'm going to take it to the mannequin so that we'll see what we have. Okay, so this is what our blouse is looking like. This is the flare sleeve, the asymmetric neckline, our band, and this is the other drop shoulder sleeve. So this is the full view of the blouse. You can see how beautiful this is looking, and it's really simple to make. I hope you enjoyed making this tutorial with me. If you enjoyed it, let us know in the comment section. Like, comment, and subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.